What's up, and welcome to the 22 Booker podcast, brought to you by 22 Booker Entertainment, the team behind the film Morning. I have John Conway, Ryan Lipscomb, and I'm Corlendos. Just one name. That's all it is. I'm on my Oprah, Madonna, Usher stuff. No,
Got
really.
reached Zendaya status, man. We really made it, man.
And I feel like Zendaya just came out with one name status. She didn't even like really work her way into it. I feel like she just.
You knew what time it was?
I don't even think I know Zendaya's last name.
Coleman.
Coleman?
Yeah.
That seems about right. Like with a first name like Zendaya, your last name would be Coleman. I mean, I'm talking, my name is Corlendos and my last name is Scott. And everybody thinks I got it reversed when I was applying for jobs and stuff like that. So anyway, this is the podcast where we talk about random stuff, but mainly around art, film, television, and all things entertainment. So how's everything been going, guys?
Great.
Yeah.
Great. I'm good, man. We're pushing the ball to the field, still in fundraising mode for Morning. Our film are trying to get made. We had a great response from our conversation with John, from a few weeks ago. So we decided to bring him back because, we like talking about movies, man. You know what I'm saying?
Look, I'm gonna be.
That's what it's all about.
Completely transparent. I am the one person today who did not go back from school, who is not as sophisticated as these other two. So, my perspective is a little more, salt of the earth, a little more layman, a little more Johnny human than these two elite filmmakers who sit atop Olympus of filmmaking. So I just want to throw that in there just so that, people know that I'm going to be the one representing, everyday Joe.
John, you hear that? Those was called the gods of the game. That's what Dose just called it.
Yeah. Maybe I should just go with John.
Conway. Yeah.
It's got to be Conway. I mean,
that's what people usually call me anyway.
You can't go with John unless you're like a disciple of Jesus or something. I feel like you're too late to the game to just be John. So wait.
That's fair. That's fair.
I understand that there's an Alex between John and Conway, and I've seen it written as J. Alex Conway, which I really like that. Yeah. I feel like J. Alex Conway of the Hertfordshire Conways would be somebody I would want.
I started when I first got in film school, I started all my films I go by J.A. Conway, and that's mostly because for the longest time I was obsessed. Well, I mean, still am with the films of Paul Thomas Anderson, and he always goes by a P.T. Anderson picture. So
now you know.
I'm not mad at it. So John, we brought you on because we want to talk about some stuff that's happening in the movie industry, certain movies that have been out, the kind of conversation that's kind of been happening amongst ourselves, and I imagine across the broader industry, how it relates to what we're doing and why we're doing it, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And when we were kind of in our production meeting, yesterday, you were talking about a movie you saw that is going to be in a bunch of Oscar conversations later in the year that I have not yet seen. Everything I've heard is that it's going to be in the conversation. So, you and our mutual friend Greg Muller was like, it's not a Ryan movie, but
yeah. It's definitely not.
I'm down to see anything in particular. You know what I'm saying? Body horror is not necessarily my cup of tea. But I'm not against a good movie, man. Never have been, never will be. You know what I mean? But you want to talk about the substance, starting to be more Margaret Qualley, Dennis Quaid, I'm forgetting the name of the director.
Carly Fergie,
Okay.
French.
Um,
Yeah, I think I mean, like, just to get into it, it's like absolutely insane. It sort of generated a buzz at Cannes, the film festival, and yeah, I was going into it a little bit like trying not to be overly excited, and like exceeded all my expectations in a positive way. And yeah, it's very confrontational, which is like, I think that's kind of one of the things I love about international filmmakers is they have this ability to really like grab their audience and just like hold, and like they're like, this is what the story is. And with The Substance, it's very stylized, it's very fun, it's very hard to watch at times. But the funniest thing I will say about it is when our mutual friend Greg and I, we talked about go seeing it. He's like the only person I know that would be like, yes, let's go. And so we had agreed to go see it. Since he's a new father, we were like, we'll see it on Monday morning. And I couldn't wait. So I went and saw it the first screening. And he knew, like, almost immediately that I hadn't responded to a text. He was like, what did you see? And I just did like a grinning emoji. And he was like, what does that mean? And I was like, 100 out of 100. No notes. It was incredible. And he was like, oh my God, you saw it. And then I was like, I don't want to build up your expectations of it. And then we saw it. That was my second time. Out of it, he was like, yeah, that was incredible. And so it's basically just, it's very high on commentary of the entertainment industry and how we sort of we kind of force women into these societal expectations, and how people that are maybe like viewed more for their looks or what they provide in terms of like beauty, and how that forces actors to like conform to societal standards that are just like insane.
That's the thing. When I hear you talk about it, it's almost like romanticized filmmaking. But the people who I heard talk about it were like, it's fucking insane, like literally. So without, I guess, giving us spoilers, like what is it? Just that social commentary, the way they approach that view of the industry and society that makes it insane? Like what makes it so shockingly good?
So I think it deals with like the duality of of self, and the idea that like almost like a younger, better version of you is the thing that you're always striving to attain in order to stay relevant. It's sort of like how we have I mean, it's sort of like it's interesting in the perspective of she's a public figure, so she's trying to like sort of maintain this expectation for herself that maybe is unrealistic, and so she basically decides to undergo this experimental drug to create a younger version of herself, and then it sort of becomes a battle between these two personalities. And I think what's really effective about it is especially with regards to casting, is that to me more is probably the quintessential version of that, where she was like gorgeous star in her prime, and don't get me wrong, she's still beautiful, and she just goes for it. And I was like, after walking out of it, I was like, I don't think I've ever seen her that good in anything. And this is something Ryan and I also talked yesterday. I was saying, like, I can't remember the last time I saw her in anything. I know she's been working, but this was very much like a emphatic, like, I'm still here, and I loved her for it, and it made me want to go back and almost like watch other stuff that she's been doing, just because I've always loved her. She's great.
Mm.
And then unsung hero of it, Dennis Quaid is reprehensible.
Oh, yeah.
It's
That's
wonderful.
who I'm looking the most forward to seeing is Dennis Quaid. I'm like, this guy.
There's a specific scene earlier on. I don't even want to say like explicitly what it is, but like he's doing something, and it's just
Let me ask you guys this, and without sounding too America, do you feel that the Academy and cinephiles in general give more weight and credence and space for foreign filmmakers than
that's actually that. So there is like this really interesting dynamic. You can see it sort of. I'm trying to think of like you see it with like Bong Joon-ho did like Parasite. You see it with there's a German filmmaker named Florian Hunkel von Donnerschmark, which is one of my favorite names of all time. He made a film called The Lives of Others, which is incredible, and it's this sort of weird thing where foreign filmmakers, international filmmakers, however you want to refer to them, they find like incredible success with like some breakout movie, and America courts them. And then America is unwilling to give them like creative control, and then they like stifle their creative control.
Well, you know,
and go ahead.
I would say, well, I was going to mention this earlier, just in terms of like, you know, you're talking about the substance being kind of like unrelenting in terms of how it's kind of going at its audience, whatever. And like the difference between like European filmmakers versus like American filmmakers is that Europe, for in a lot of cases, will subsidize. You know, they subsidize the filmmakers' art, right? They help finance these films, right? You know, just as like, you know, important piece of art, whatever, and helping filmmakers get their projects made and stuff like that. America has no apparatus for doing everything on just like, you know, private money. You know, we have to get everything back, money back, get a ton of profit. It's complete capitalism, kind of like unexpected stuff like that. And I think that, you know, in a perfect world, whatever, like America would have, you know, kind of a system set up like that, without give like filmmakers and artists the freedom to kind of make their art and make their where they want to make to them, without it being, you know, if something doesn't make like, you know, a significant profit, it's a complete disaster. You know what I'm saying? Like,
that's the idea of the profit incentive really stifles the creativity,
right?
And
I'm sorry. Go ahead, John.
Go ahead. Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I think that, like, in some ways, I guess it's like, as someone that, you know, obsessively absorbs cinema, it does sometimes like forget, oh, normal audiences don't love stuff like this, but I think it's important to challenge people, and so that they're willing to kind of like see outside of their own taste, just to kind of like expand the limits of their tastes. And yeah, I think I agree with Ryan, where it's just like you get different voices when you're not constantly chasing profit. I will also say that, like, with the substance, I don't know the whole process of it, but it's distributor in the US is Movie, and they're kind of doing a really interesting things. Like, I just watched another movie re-release yesterday for The Fall, which is another foreign filmmaker who found international success and came here. And that movie, like, I was blown away by it, having not seen it since it came out. And it's just, it's just usually you get more from people when you're able to kind of like encourage their creativity, instead of being like, well, I don't know if audiences like this.
Exactly. I mean, and that's the thing too. Also, just the way in the Europe's model, it also kind of creates it kind of facilitates a space for more artists to be able to kind of do things. It kind of creates a kind of like an off-ramp for artists who not necessarily are coming from like different backgrounds, whatever, to be able to make art and stuff like that, because it's not just like, oh, it's just for people who are money, to come from money, whatever, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
It allows artists who may not have those means to actually start to make their art, whatever, and make films and try to create, in a space where they're not like, I definitely put like money on the table, food on the table. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think in America, like we kind of had gotten to a space where, it seems to be an art form just for people. You know what I mean? To be able to make things we create, because it's too hard to kind of like, to support yourself, and try to make films at the same time. That's the way the industry is set up. So, that's why I think like over the last few years, like most of the most interesting films I've seen have been foreign films. I think of The Worst Person in the World. I think of Drive My Car. I think of Parasite. I think of Past Lives. Like all these kind of movies that kind of have like foreign backing and stuff like that, in order to get made. So hopefully, like, we're kind of, again, we've been talking about the industry being in flux right now, it kind of resetting itself. Maybe we kind of get back to a point in time where the artist kind of drive things ground up instead of things being kind of trickling from the top down.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think that like it's definitely a way to. I think one of the. I mean, I've said before. I think one of the things I love about film is it's like you get sort of different perspectives on the same idea. So like when you get something like The Substance, it's like the idea, the core idea is essentially familiar, but it's this woman from France being like, "Isn't this fucked up?" Like hammering it in, and you're like, you walk out and you're like, yeah, I agree with that. That is really fucked up. What happened there? Did you switch something?
Okay, keep going.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that like you get this sort of you get these different perspectives that you don't normally get. And I think that one of the things that like as consumers of media we often forget is it's like you walk into something, you're like, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. And if I don't like this, then I'm going to completely reject it. If I like it, I'm going to support that. And it's like I get the idea of supporting your dollar in the marketplace, but it kind of tends to close yourself off and create, and it's also it's a product of the world we live in today, where it's like you want to form these bubbles and protect your I don't know, your thought process from a different way of thinking, and I think that's really poisonous in a lot of ways. So
for all the valid points that you guys are making, one has to wonder though, why is there no Hollywood Europe, UK, Germany, France, all these great places? I mean, Korea, all these great places. Like, the economy of their cinema structure doesn't hold a candle to Hollywood in quantity, if not quality. But so I feel like maybe it's easier for artists to have an on-ramp in some, internationally, because maybe their country or, their society will subsidize them getting into the industry or their projects. But are there more of them, or do you have a better chance?
Yeah,
I have to wonder, because I see so many international, or at least at the actor level, coming to Hollywood to work in Hollywood,
yeah, you're right.
and not Bollywood or Nollywood or whatever.
Bollywood is the exception. Bollywood is the exception because like their industry is thriving.
They churn out. They I would say quantity definitely is there.
I would say Nollywood is definitely growing too. I mean, it's in my mind, like it's hard to kind of like go kind of like rah rah, the American film industry right now. It's like so much of it kind of in decline and collapse at the moment. As it resets, and like and obviously that affects like the international film market, whatever. But at the same time, like a lot of these other industries, like they're doing okay. You know what I mean? Like they're catching up.
It's like I mean we have like idea of like how much people are paid before they go into production, and then it almost like I frequently think about the Blumhouse model, the original model of filmmaking, which was like we set a hard budget size. Everyone kind of, I don't know if they were getting paid to scale, but they weren't getting paid like traditional movie star salaries. And then the incentive is that everyone has a reason for this to succeed because they end up making more if it's a good movie. And yeah, but I think it's it's a give and take, and it's challenging to figure out what the best way is, because Hollywood as it stands, they were making things that like the rest of the world was not making. And for something like, for instance, like On the Fall, the movie, just because I watched it yesterday, like, I don't feel bad for spoiling it because it's an 18-year-old movie, but like the end of it shows all this footage from silent film era stuntmen. And it's like, yeah, that was kind of like the start of it all. Like people saw those and they were like, oh, we can do that. And, I think that's like one of the things I treasure about like cinema is it's like you see someone else do it and you're like, oh yeah, I can do that. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of get the ideas, and like ideas spread from ideas. It's just more or less like the financial model it can benefit the investors more than the creatives a lot of the time. And I think if we did something where it was like the creatives see the benefit of their work, like that's also like, that gets into like the Netflix model and streaming model where it's like they're not sharing numbers. People are getting these huge payouts, and then people are like, Ryan, where we're struggling. And it's like,
yeah. I mean, look, you even see kind of like the pushback from like, kind of A-list filmmakers, whatever. Like, kind of in the news right now is like Greta Gerwig is fighting with Netflix just to, her Chronicles of Narnia movie that she wants to do for Netflix. Like she's fighting with them, and fighting is like a loaded word because like Greta Gerwig is not necessarily like, it's probably a gentle nudging from her more than anything in terms of just like, hey, it'd be great if these movies were actually in a theater. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
the theatrical experience is like unparalleled in my experience.
Yeah, and you always hear too just about like the way Netflix kind of like kind of limits like the look of a film, like in terms of like it being more uniform, like these are the lenses you can use. Here, did
you watch Rebel Ridge?
I have not watched Rebel Ridge.
That movie, I was like, I mean, Jeremy Saulnier, the filmmaker, his movies are very, this is one of his movies, Green Room. It's like one of my favorites. His movies are, he's a former cinematographer, so he knows visual aesthetics really well. And I thought Rebel Ridge kind of like fell flat. It was an incredible movie, but like the actual visuals felt stunted to me, and it's a Netflix movie. So it's like, you kind of see that, and it's because they want uniformity for people that may watch something on a phone versus a laptop versus a computer screen versus, a movie theater. And I have a projector. So when I watch Netflix movies, it's just like, oh, hang on a second. I got a coughing cat. Oh, right. Cool. Oh, sorry. He was making noise. It was freaking me out. Anyways,
I mean, to that point, like, almost our kind of like, filmmaker friends, whatever, like, Rebel Ridge has kind of been a topic of conversation and stuff like that. And like, for me, it's not necessarily like a hard and fast rule for me. I just find myself like not being super excited about Netflix movies. And that's not even like, and they'll have like great filmmakers putting movies on Netflix, whatever. And I always kind of feel like, man, it'd be great if this is actually in a theater and actually felt like special to watch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like I can find myself kind of like not necessarily gravitating towards those films, and like they may be great films, just like the performance and you know the directing and stuff like that. But I always feel like there's a little something off about them. I mean,
It's too neat.
yeah,
It's too clean.
yeah.
I agree with that.
And so, I mean, and that's, you know, I think that's the thing, like, as artists we're like grappling with in terms of like, you know, how do we, when it's still continue? All right, and this, I think, you know, this goes into discussion like AI, whatever, like the craft of things, right? Whereas like part of, you know, part of the joy of art and making art is looking at the craft and how you do it in the process of doing it.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, it's like why, like, you know, RJ, like we still love watching older movies that are shot on film, like the imperfections of the grain in the film stock.
Yeah, I mean, like even further than that, this is like also like a argument that Ryan and I get in with our friend too about like presentation. I think is important, and it's like it gives you a sort of like indescribable feeling, and it's like subconscious to watch a movie projected. I like watching movies projected on film because it's, I don't know, maybe it's a nostalgia thing, but yeah, I think it's important to digest it the way it was intended to be digested. You think you can watch something on your phone if you're at the airport, but you're not going to get the same experience. You're in a dark theater with a bunch of other people, hopefully not on the phone. I dealt with that the other day.
It's nostalgia thing because, well, a couple things. It's some. I heard somebody talk about how adults are always stuck in whatever time frame they had their most success, their biggest hits. So you have a grown man wearing the clothes he wore, the style he wore in high school. Yeah. That was his best year. Like, that's when I hit it. So I think that like we came of age at a time when we were watching films in the theater, and we romanticize that because it was a special coming of age for us. We talk. I mean, every filmmaker says this. Like, I love the grain, I love the imperfections of film. But do you think that when they were shooting on film early on, that they were really wanting those imperfections? Like, no, that's something that happens because that's what people. I mean, because that's what it was, and. Yeah, I literally watched my nieces and nephews sit in a room with a 65, 70-inch television screen and turn it off to watch a movie on their cell phones. Because for them, that's more comfortable for whatever reason. I would want to see everything in the highest definition possible, but for them, it's different. And so I think it's a matter of, is Netflix and all those platforms, are they moving the ball? Are they seeing what's coming down the road and they're getting there ahead of time? Or are they just, you know, is it a profit? Is it a profit thing? Like they're like, hey, with uniformity, we can crank out the most. It shows the most uniformly on all screens, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know.
Me personally, I think it's a profit thing. I think this goes to the broad thing in the industry where it's like, the Hollywood itself is lamenting like why are we losing money on movies all the time? Why the industry feel like it's weakening, blah blah blah, is because you devalued your product. You know what I mean? Like films should feel special. Films should feel like events. Every film should feel like an event. There should be a broad swath of different kinds of films. Wherever we should be able to go to the theater and say, hey, I have all kinds of options to go see a movie. We don't have that right now. You know what I mean? And so this is kind of the issue. Like they're not.
It's also the issue with like Netflix and Apple is like sometimes something will come out and I'll be like, I have never heard of this. If I had been advertised this or if I knew this was coming, I would have been there the first day.
Yeah. And so it's like, you talk about, we should have less theaters, we have fewer theaters. So like, where it's like, so like person who wants to see a movie in Middle America, now they have to drive like an hour to go see a movie. Like that makes no sense. You know what I mean?
It's also like, see the argument about the price of, for like, especially with like family of four or something like that. Like, I'm not going to spend $50 for 4 of us to see something. It's like, yeah, I agree with that. That's insane.
Especially like when the product isn't worth that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, if you were, if you were placing if you were creating value for the audience, in a way like, you're putting your best foot forward in terms of like, just like the cinematic on the screen. I'm not talking about like how comfortable the seats are. I'm not talking about like, I get to have a 5-course dinner while I'm watching a movie. I'm not talking about like 4D, whatever, you know what I'm saying? Where it's like, oh, now I'm in the tornado and the mist is hitting me in the face, whatever. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the freaking product on the screen. Is it a good movie?
Yeah.
Is it a good movie? Does it look rich? Does it look textured? Is it saying something about the world? Whatever. Is it not just something that's gonna is mind numbing and just like a distraction for 2 hours? You know what I mean?
I also think that like there's something to be said too about like the idea of both sides in this are well, both sides because there's multiple factors, but like the studio side and then also the audience side. And it's like the studio is like overly controlling, they know on a thing and they're catering to an audience that essentially is only interested in what they want to see, that thing that they want to see. And as long as both sides are like unwilling to compromise, we're kind of stuck in this limbo of similarity and repeated ideas and nothing really, stepping out of line.
And here's the thing too, just from like that standpoint, right? There, but my friends always make fun of me, whatever. Like my my undergrad degree is in marketing, whatever, right? And just like my undergrad degree is marketing, and so just like one of the basic principles of marketing about like strategy in terms of marketing is like the push strategy and the pull strategy, right? The pull strategy is the audience tells you what they want, and so you give it to them, right?
Yeah.
The push strategy is you have a good product and you tell the audience what they want. And I think the problem that we have now is we're kind of not doing either. In how, you know what I mean? It's like the studios are literally kind of doing this thing where it's like, oh, like we have this thing, maybe you want to, maybe you don't, whatever. Like, this idea of like, and we talked about this in our production meeting, whatever, where it's like the movie has made a musical, and yet if you watch the trailers, you have no idea that it's a freaking musical. They try to hide the fact that it's musical because
is there a specific movie you're talking about?
Well, there's a few movies where this was true, you know what I mean, in recent years, right? And it's been noticeable, and in most cases, and that's disastrous for the movie financially.
Tell Ryan, what is the best example of this in recent history, in your opinion?
Look, I'm just saying that if you have a bunch of people who are not necessarily predisposed to liking musicals, and you trick them into singing a musical, they will lash out. Is all I'm going to say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas,
not like Joaquin Phoenix, is there something you need to tell us? What?
Look, okay, so they're proud of me. So I'm just saying, like, part of this, like, Joker 2, I can't say the freaking thing. Say it to me.
Whoa! Hang on. You're telling me Joker 2 is a musical? Joker,
Shocking. But yeah, I mean, it's the thing. Like you have a bunch of people who like not predisposed to liking musicals, and so they go see a movie, think they're getting one thing, and now they feel like betrayed and hoodwinked when they're sitting in the theater, and they
Well,
laugh.
tell me this: how much music does it take to make a musical? Like, what's the tipping point? I mean, like how many black people has to be in a movie before it's a black film? How much music needs to be there before it's a musical? If we just got the one piece, like, is it a musical?
I don't know the formula, personally.
That is an interesting topic.
I do know the formula for a black film, but that's neither here nor there.
While we hear
that's a whole different podcast.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as the lone white guy here, I would say like even hearing that is like in some ways like disappointing for me because I'm like, I don't care. Like if it's a good movie, it's a good movie. Like,
look, and we like that take, honestly.
All right, Bad Boys 4, black movie?
No.
Yeah, that one has a lot more diversity in the cast.
Notwithstanding all the Will and Martin and families.
That's another podcast altogether. Like I went into that and I was like, I have high hopes for this because I love Bad Boys 1, Bad Boys 2. Let's not talk about Bad Boys. But also like the titling, it's so weird. It's like your third movie is called For Life. Come on. Anyways, the Joker thing with regards to it being a musical, I think that's like, I mean, it has like musical numbers, but like it's also very like it's a generous term, which is kind of another reason why I'm like surprised that people are like pissed off that it's a musical. I think people are. It's like a, just like a hornet's nest of like anger with regards to like how the characters handle the subject matter, musical numbers. It doesn't do what audiences wanted to do. I think in that regard, it's a failure. But I watched it and I was kind of like, I can't believe people are panning this as much as they are.
So this
goes very competent.
This goes into like a broader point. I want to make. If Todd Phillips had made Joker to Filet do, am I saying? Filet do. I'm sorry, Filet do. Second.
I could have said anything there, and you would have agreed with truth.
Filet do. If Joker made Filet do, sorry, Todd Phillips made Filet do exactly as it was, but it was not. The character wasn't the Joker. It was a separate, its own movie by itself, not including the Joker, whatever. Like, it probably wouldn't have had the same impact. Because I think the problem here is that we are lost in any nostalgia loop with a lot of these big franchises, whatever. There's too many of them. We need to be making new stuff because it's too hard for creators and artists to try to operate in a silo, whatever, where the fandom is like, no, I like what I like. I like what I liked when I was like 12, and I don't want to change that at all. I don't want it to be any different than what I had when I was 12. Blah. Like how do you operate in that kind of regressive kind of environment when you're trying to be an artist and make things? You know what I'm saying? It's like
it is also an interesting aspect of what Ghost was saying too about like
it too. I want film stock. I want things to look like what they looked like when I was a kid.
I would disagree with that.
We're talking about stories, not.
I was gonna say, okay. I was gonna get I get what you're both saying. I would say those about what you're saying is. I think the problem is less that it's that and more like it's like let's use the simplest tools that require the least amount of effort to get a product. And I'm saying like choose the right tool for the right job. You're shooting a period piece. It would look great on film. It kind of adds to the nostalgia of the period.
Yes, that works.
However, with what I was saying about the thing with Joker, as it pertains to Dose's point earlier about you get stuck in an era where you thought you were at your prime, and Ryan's saying like, it's like, oh, I like this when I was 12. Maybe that's a little bit, but it's like a little bit of an Arrested Development mentality where it's like, well, I like this character for the exact archetype I know from every movie I've ever seen and every comic book I've ever read. And if you step outside of that, we're gonna have problems.
It's not canon.
I feel like we made a movie that's like, hey, you like the first movie? Go fuck yourself. And it's very apparent. But it's also like, as me, I'm like watching, I'm like, this is hilarious. Like, what?
Hey, judge me if you want. I can't wait for the live action Thundercats movie to somehow manifest.
Look,
Yeah, I
fine.
mean,
Look,
it's-
I'm not saying you can't like what you like. What I'm saying is that there should be an apparatus for newer things to be like different things, more original things to be made. We don't have to fall into the thing where we got to do it. We got to slip into the exact crevice of what this particular audience base, thinks a character should be. You know what I mean? You should give them new characters, new memories, whatever, new things to be mad about 20 years from now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that's my thing. And like on the other side of this, whatever, when we talk about like when I talk about like the film stock and blah blah, that's not like nostalgia. That's more like cinema is cinema. It's a visual medium, right? Like the thing that makes it great, the texture, the way it looks, those type of things, like the depth, the depth of the image and stuff like that, the texture of the image when you watch it on the screen, whatever, right? So when we shoot things in a way where things just look sterile and flat and just like not that interesting, we lose a lot. And so that's the point I'm making. That's not nostalgia. That's just like what is cinema, right? What is a feast for the eyes and what's not. You know what I mean?
I frequently get the conversations. I get the conversations of like film versus digital. I'm like very much like, I love film. I'll shoot on film. I think film's better.
But even in digital,
also
you can still get texture on digital. It's not like that's not saying you can't get that. You know what I mean?
I'm saying specifically like choose the right tool for the right job.
Yeah.
And I think that we get caught in this like money like the other thing too is like you get into the money saving aspect of it. If you shoot digital and you shoot endlessly, you're gonna have to hire assistant editors to digest all the footage. You're gonna take more time in post. And it's like with film, maybe more on our level, like you shoot more limited, you're more disciplined, you're gonna do something more efficiently, and then it makes the job easier down the road. And it's just like, I don't know. It makes it, in some ways, you just like get a different feeling. You listen to different spots. I also think personally, the idea of film is kind of just magic in general. Like the idea of like how the film goes through and you see it. It's like you're seeing basically being still images and it like creates movement. And that's like the realest way of seeing like something magical take place.
And let me be clear, I'm not necessarily like I'm not like someone who's like, oh, it has to be shot on film. That's not what I'm saying at all. Like you can manipulate imagery in a variety of different ways in terms of like just like the lenses you're using and how you're using them, when you're using them, placement of the camera, the light you're using, like all those things manipulate the image and stuff like that. Like what I've been seeing in a lot of stuff is just like a very flat image based on constraints that are put on the filmmakers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so when everything is uniform and looks the same, you lose way too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's the point I'm trying to make. And you can great cinematographers shoot on digital and it looks amazing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All the time. Right? Yeah. And so like this is not even an argument about versus film versus digital. This is an argument just for like the process and practice of cinema. You being able to utilize the tools at your disposal in the way you want to use them as an artist. And that's
and I think I agree with that. And I think like it's just getting back to like the Joker of it all. What you're saying about like, oh, if this was a movie not about Joker, it wouldn't receive any pushback. It's like, then your budget goes from 200 million to 15 million.
And that's fine. That's fine.
I'd agree.
You know what I'm saying?
I think the problem in these bloated budgets, and it's like, oh, this movie's a massive failure, and it's like, I mean, it made $150 million. It should have made more, but like, if you're making that much money and your movie's considered a failure, maybe you're doing something wrong.
That's the thing, like overheads are just way too high. So like they spent like the first Joker was like how much the budget was like what 50 million? 50 million maybe?
Probably.
Right?
Yeah.
And so they made $1 billion off that, right? And so movie 2, because you made so much money, the quote for Joaquin Phoenix goes way up. You know, you get Lady Gaga, her quote is what it is, you know what I'm saying? And now, just off top, your budget is already approaching 100 million. So just, you shot in the budget, right?
The budget on Joker was 55
million.
So you,
right? And so it's like, look, the goal here should be putting the money on the screen, right? And then based on the product you've made, the way you market it, the way you roll it out, push it, you make your money on the back end of the movie, whatever, right? That's how you make good cinema, right? If you try to make all your money up front, that's the road to bad movies. Like just bad movies and a loss of money, quite honestly.
Yeah.
So it's a double sin because now you've made a creative product and also you're bankrupt financially. You know what I mean? So why would you do it? What's the point? You know what I mean? This is also why, like, you know, we need to be investing in newer, younger movie stars and building newer movie stars. So we don't have, you know, the same movie stars we've had where quotes are going to approach $50 million. You know what I mean? Before they show up. You know what I mean?
We have new movie stars. They're called influencers.
I was gonna say, you saw that too.
Yeah,
I don't know who those people are. So anyway,
I knew who 2 of them were, and it's because I have a friend that worked for them. Rhett and Link from Good Mythical Morning. That was the only 2 people I knew.
Look, until they're actually making movies, then that discussion means nothing to me. So
I think it's just like it's a weird position, and I think it's like, you know, it's gonna take like, you know, gumption from like people that truly believe that there is something special about cinema as a whole and its purpose for your audience. And I gotta say, I mean, like the whole Joker 2 thing, like while I do think it's like overall a failure, like I'm not the biggest Todd Phillips fan, but like the idea of him doing that, I'm like, that's false. And I'm almost like, I'm at the point where I'm like thinking about it, I'm like, you know, if I could have gone back and been like, Todd, don't do it, I'd probably be like, no, Todd, do it. It's a great idea.
I would not have, but
you haven't seen it though, have you?
Look, I'm just saying, like, I'm like, hey, you know, there's a different way to do this.
I'm very, I mean, like, as talking about, like, you know, leading into all this discussion with me talking about how the substance is just like unrelenting. I'm very pro art that shakes up and creates a conversation. And for me, it doesn't matter if it's like good or bad. If people are talking about it, I think there's something to it. And that's like also with like Megalopolis too. Like the idea that like people were like, this movie's awful or this movie is a masterpiece. And it's like someone like Francis Ford Coppola is like, he's made an entire career out of doing. Right. And I think that like that's the true mark of a great artist is like they're not gonna like fall back on their laurels and repeat their steps. They're gonna try new things and do incredible work. Dose is giving me a look. I want to hear what this is.
With all due respect to the brilliance of Francis Ford Coppola, I don't know if he's the only one, but he's one of the few people I know who's had like a blockbuster. Like he had a blockbuster Oscar. Like I respect that, but he dipped back and then followed it up with another Academy Award-winning film.
Yeah, like he may have had the best run any filmmaker ever had.
Pool, John. Like I won't say he rested morals, but like 3.
I think I guess okay. So what I'll retract that and say that like eventually he was probably like a pioneer in that regard where he was like, I'm not just gonna. He put his reputation on the line, and he made a movie called One from the Heart. Post that run, where it's just like you watch it, you're like, man, I can see why people didn't want this. This is an insane task. But at the same time, it also ended up influencing an entire group of filmmakers, and you see that in their work. So it's like, I would rather take that risk and influence people than be like, maybe it's not a great idea, and just like never pull the trigger on it. And like also, yeah, Godfather 2, Godfather 3, maybe you missed that.
The conversation
on your opinion. Conversation, Apocalypse Now. Oh, Jack. He basically made One from the Heart. It bankrupted him. He had to, take work for hire jobs, and he made, slop. But like he had to he took a massive risk, and I think that you're never gonna make great art unless you take risks.
Look, he started a freaking vineyard to raise the money to do this movie, and he put his own money up and did what he wanted to do. So based on that, I respect it. He did what he wanted to do with his own money. That is his right to do. You know what I mean? He didn't while people were trashing Coppola or whatever. At the same time, he didn't play fast and lose somebody else's money. He did it with his own money. So why are we trashing him? He did what he wanted to do with his own money, right? It'd be a different conversation if he set somebody else's money on fire, right?
Todd Phillips. I also think that with regards to Megalopolis, is I've seen that one twice now, and I think that one is the first experience. I was very much this is all over the place. It's insane. I don't know what to make of this. And then the second time I saw it, I was like, okay, I know what the movie's wavelength is the entire time. And I got on the wavelength, and I was just like, oh, okay, I understand what he's doing. It may not be fully comprehensible all the time, but I liked it a lot. And I also think that sometimes as audiences we get too kind of complacent with the idea of how visual effects should look, and this should look this way, and this looks dumb because it's not up to snuff. And it's sometimes the idea is more important than the actual quality. And I think that that's something that he achieved very well too. I also think, it's just kind of some of the most absurdly funny things I've ever seen in a movie. And I also think that people are oh, it's bad, and that's funny. And it's I think it's weird to look at someone like Francis Ford Coppola and be like, I bet he wasn't aware of that at all. It's no, he got it.
All right. Well, that's a good place for us to wrap things up. John, as always, we're going to have you, we continue to have you back because we like these conversations.
Yeah, we have to get into AI.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, so much to get into.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you for joining the 22 Booker podcast. We're still trying to make morning. We're raising money for that. Contact us if you want to help us do that. We're building a whole army of supporters. So let us know.
And can I say real quick, Ryan, that support can manifest in a number of different ways. Maybe you don't have funds to give. If you do, please contribute to our crowdfunding campaign. But maybe you want to be involved in the filmmaking process in some capacity, and there's going to be ways that you can do that. And if that's you, please follow us on all the socials, reach out to us, and plug in, because we definitely want to give you the opportunity to help us, and maybe in ways that don't involve finances, but involve being part of the team.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right. Thank you both, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Later.